I'm Raj Lala with Vistar Media, and I'm super excited we were able to get all of you here for this panel. So we're going to take a little inside view into how brand, agency, and platform teams can come together more often to really create winning campaigns. And today we're going to do this through the lens of programmatic out of home. For American Airlines, this is a relatively new channel, but one that they've seen a lot of recent success and growth in. So look forward to diving in with you all. With that, I'm going to kick it over to you guys, if you don't mind going down the line. Quick intro, maybe telling us a little bit about your role, and given we're all thinking about vacation mode, maybe your favorite travel destination from the last year.
Yeah, definitely. So hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Collins. I work at EssenceMediaCom, and I'm an associate media director here. And I would say my favorite destination within the last year was going to Disney. I have 2 kids, so Disney's always a pretty magical place.
Good afternoon. I'm Marty Peat, the Senior Manager of Global Media and Alliance Marketing at American Airlines. I would say Tel Aviv. Beaches, food, culture.
Nice.
Good place for summer.
I like it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian Witter. I am the Director of Programmatic and Partnerships at Kinetic, Group M's out-of-home investment arm. My favorite travel destination over the past year was Rome, Italy. First time being, and it's stunning.
I still have never been, so it's on the list. Thanks, guys. So Marty, I know you had to fly in from Texas to be here, and Morgan and Adrian only had to come down a couple flights in the building.
Beat them.
And you still beat them.
I still beat them.
So we're going to start with you. You've been in the travel industry for some time. From your days at Qantas and now American, can you just tell us a little bit about your background in the airline industry and how maybe your perspective towards media has evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, for sure. Who's been through an airport in the last 6 months? Right. Travel is back. Travel is back. It is busy. In fact, demand is outpacing capacity right now. And actually, for all of us in the travel verticals, it's a good problem, but it's still a problem to have. And I think that's really forced to change in the way we think about our campaign planning, the way we think about buying our media, and then the measurement of that as well. So, pre-COVID, even more so during COVID, we're very focused on routes and destinations, selling particular flights to certain places, and it was very geo-based. I think as we've come out of the pandemic and we're looking at a change in strategy, we're much more focused on audiences, segmentation, buying based on behaviors, and then planning our channels and plans according to that.
Makes sense. And a good segue to Morgan. So EssenceMediaCom kind of sits at the middle of it all. Can you tell us a little bit about the working relationship between EssenceMediaCom and the American team and some of the things they've been tasked you with over the last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. So EssenceMediaCom, just as an introduction, we are the media agency that handles all of the media for American Airlines. We have had the business for about 7 years now, a little over 7 years, and we've really seen the account evolve over the past 7 years. And I mean, just from a media investment perspective alone, I would say our budgets have at least nearly doubled, if not close to tripling. So we've really taken a large investment and allocated it towards media. And just in terms of some of our goals for this year specifically, we're coming off of the tail end of the pandemic, like you mentioned, Marty. So we've really been tasked with shifting away from that lower funnel conversion tactics that we were heavily invested in during the pandemic. And now we've taken the opportunity to shift away from that and really meet the consumers where the consumer demand is and where we've seen in the category that it needs to grow, which is loyalty. So our main focus for this year, which is to promote the American Airlines Advantage loyalty program, along with their co-brand initiative for their MasterCard co-brand partnership. So really just driving that loyalty amongst the prospective consumers and driving long-term loyalty, because we've seen amongst the travel category that loyalty is fairly low. So with that said, we've really had the opportunity to shift more towards upper and mid funnel tactics this year. And we've had the opportunity to take advantage of that by allocating really an a video agnostic approach. So we're heavily investing in online video, streaming video, social video, addressable TV, as well as out of home. And actually, this is the first year coming off of Q4 that we have invested in out of home since 2019. So we're really excited for this year. And we're kind of looking at this year as a new page and a new path forward into future years coming out of the pandemic.
Nice. Adrian and I are also excited about that. Yes. So I think Adrian would love your perspective too, from the Kinetic side of things. How do you guys approach digital media buying? And I think taking into account some of the nuances for out of home compared to the other digital mediums.
Yeah, it's a great question. And ultimately what we try to do is create a level of equivalency between digital out of home and the other digital channels that exist. Out of home isn't a one-for-one, like for like with the likes of display and online video. We have to create new ways of working, new infrastructure in order to have it match with the capability and feature set and be a feature on client media plans. And I think some of the key ways that we look to do this is, firstly, creating effectiveness. How are we looking to actually plan and buy and execute these campaigns? And how are we looking to measure and attribute the performance? Secondly is how are we looking to integrate out of home into existing ways of working with other digital channels? Out of home is largely sat as a silo, and what we're trying to do now is integrate it into the wider digital mix so that it can play alongside those channels and ultimately showcase its synergistic effects at driving performance across search, social, and amongst others. And then lastly is innovation. Out of home in a programmatic sense, at the very least, is relatively nascent, and there's a lot of development to be done to bring it along to the level of some of the other channels. How do we do that in an effective way that produces results for our clients? Those are some of the key questions we ask ourselves at every moment when it comes to the development of out of home within GroupM. And I think that's, again, guiding principles.
Awesome. And for everyone's context too, Vistar works closely with your group, and from a technology perspective over the last 10 years, we've really tried to focus on building out this programmatic out-of-home ecosystem, right? So in the early days, it was getting the big media owners on board, helping them automate the way their inventory is made available. But then it's working closely with teams like yours to advance the tools from a planning, data, and measurement perspective, but then also just having a little bit more of an active seat at that table, right? I don't think out of home has come to the forefront or the top priority on any brand's list, but it's just nice to be part of the conversation and see it extend over in that way. So we're going to kind of take a turn and dive a little bit more into media strategy now on the American side. So Marty, would love to hear from your perspective, how are you focused on driving growth for American Airlines?
Yeah, so I talked and we've seen, right, the planes are full. There's only so many seats on any given day that we can sell. And so for our business and a lot of organizations now, we're seeing this growth coming from loyalty. And that loyalty, yes, running a reliable operation will always be core to what we do. In fact, we know that when the planes are on time, when the schedule's running smoothly, the Wi-Fi seems to work better, the food tastes better, the points seem to be more rewarding, right? But as we've changed our focus now to look at loyalty, we also want to make sure that we're giving back to our customers. So making that travel experience more rewarding for them. So a little over 12 months ago, we restructured the Advantage program, and now you can earn status without ever even purchasing a flight. So through your credit card, your dining, your shopping will allow you to earn status. And so I guess the thing for us is, how do we continue to communicate that through our owned channels, through our earned media, but then paid? Who are those people that aren't part of the program today, who are missing out on that opportunity? I think it used to be that decision of, do I buy a new couch? Do I eat out for dinner, or do I save for that vacation? And what we were trying to say to flyers, non-flyers is, you can eat out, you can buy the couch, and by doing that, by making those habitual purchases, you're actually still banking miles, loyalty points towards your next trip. And so that's what we've been trying to communicate. And I think we added digital out of home onto the plan last year successfully, because it was an opportunity not only to reach our members, our Advantage customers where we know they live, at the times of day where we know they're going in and out of their workplace or traveling on the weekends for sports, etc., but also to remind everybody that had the credit card in their pocket to use it and to take advantage of that moment to use it. And we've seen some really strong results as come out of that.
Love it. And I think on the agency side, obviously, Morgan and Adrian, your teams work closely together to bring some of these concepts to life. Can you guys speak a little bit to the cross-channel synergies that EssenceMediaCom and Kinetic kind of bring to the table together, and ultimately how out of home now is being more integrated from a data and measurement perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of how we kind of work together, so although I seem to sit in the middle of it all, I think Adrian really does sit in the middle of it all in regards to out of home, especially, and in regards to that omni-channel approach. So in working with Adrian and in working with a partner like Vistar, we're able to not only run our ads reaching that high reach visibility, but then we're also able to retarget users, and we're able to pass users' IDs back that have been exposed to the out-of-home ads, pass it back to Adrian's team, and he's able to pass it back to our programmatic team, which is then essentially included in our overarching campaign. So we're totally tying the pieces down all together and driving users down the funnel. And really, out-of-home, I think there is a little misconception of out-of-home, specifically amongst advertisers and even people in the media industry. I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize how far it's really come. I mean, the data capabilities, the measurement that out-of-home does bring to the table, the targeting, as well as buying. I think you mentioned before, you don't only need to buy on a local geo level, but now you can also buy programmatic out-of-home on a national level. So it's really evolved in the space over the last few years through the pandemic and maybe even like 7 years back. But there really is so much more data capabilities that can be utilized. Specifically, when you're even thinking about your measurement overarching, out-of-home should be included in that overarching measurement approach because it can be measured, specifically playing into your overall strategic approach. Yeah.
And just to echo on what Morgan's just mentioned, I think us working closely together is so pivotal to this because our team is literally, all we do is specialize on out-of-home and the development of its capabilities to achieve those results. And then Morgan can take that to Marty and float that up as an opportunity that can then be seized upon and activated as it has been on this past MasterCard campaign. I think to that point, the ability of out of home to be integrated into all of these solutions is, we're only scratching the surface at this point. We've done, we've seen great results thus far, and we're only innovating more to see, how much further we can understand the performance that can be derived. In any shape and form, whether it's the signups of the card, whether it's app download, there is a variety of different metrics that are largely underutilized when it comes to capturing out of home performance that we are innovating with the team to actually surface.
Nice. And Marty.
And also, I just wanted to add that also when looking at out-of-home, and I'm not just trying to play up out-of-home, but really out-of-home this year has dramatically skyrocketed. There's been surveys out of people who've viewed out-of-home ads 50% more this year than they did in 2019. So tremendous increase across the board. And really, when you are looking at out-of-home, you really should be including it in your overarching campaign because it ultimately does drive digital consumer behavior. So I think it was 80% of people who have seen an ad, that's how they find out about a product. And then they take to search via search engine or social media. So it really has that longevity of driving users down the funnel. So it's not just that upper funnel tactic. And ultimately, we do have a way to measure that and tying it back to our overall measurement strategy.
Do you want to work at Vistar? That was awesome. I guess, Marty, I would love your perspective too. I think from a more bird's eye view, when you're looking at the MMMs and tracking results, I know one-to-many mediums like out of home sometimes it's tougher to decipher what's actually going on. But how do you approach it and look at those results from a higher level?
Yeah. I think traditionally we would have thought of it as an upper funnel awareness driving tactic. We worked together when I was at Qantas as well. And the reason why I wanted to bring it back in with the challenge that we have in our business today is how do we use it to drive action as well, whether that be make a flight purchase or remind people to use the card. And so we're bringing in new measurement partners as well to help us track. I think the pandemic was great in the fact that it taught everybody how to use a QR code and it forced Apple to make it easier to scan a QR code. Yes, some of the placements have that. That is not the primary measure of success for these billboards or that creative. Yes, impressions is one, but also then we're looking at the time of day that those impressions were served and then the number of people in certain markets that have a co-branded credit card and what happens to their spending habits. So some insights we can derive from MasterCard as a result of that. Or in certain cities, are we seeing more people going to AA.com to make a flight purchase at the specific times that we know those impressions were served? And as you mentioned, Morgan, I think then the retargeting capabilities, right? And seeing how that audience performs against retargeting tactics, say from site visitors or people that had abandoned the card, and compare those two. From the activity we ran in Q4, without giving away all the secrets, we saw a 300 to 1 return on a couple of those metrics of new advantage joins, co-brand spend, but also then flight purchase. And so when you're presenting that at a senior level to say, hey, that's what this media can drive, it's pretty hard to argue with. But data and being able to back it up is really key. And I think we're just more excited to see how this year's investment goes, because the tracking capabilities and ability to demonstrate what it delivers is only going to continue to improve.
Nice. And Morgan, just coming quickly back to you, I think out of home or no out of home, I think looking at any new solution, how does your team look at evaluating success with a new partner? And how can any partner in the space come to you with a new opportunity? What's most attractive from their approach there?
Yeah, I mean, all of American success is driven and measured by tangible results. So from the get-go, from when we start planning, we already start to develop a strategic framework of how we're going to be measuring each partner, each tactic, and basically building out a scorecard so that way we can measure throughout the year and measure and get that all set up right from before we go live. So we're always looking to work with new partners. We of course have our tried and true partners that we know drive results, but we're also looking to be innovators in the space. So we're always looking to start those conversations and get out there and start testing. So we test throughout the year, but we always kind of develop our strategic framework up front to ensure that the client, Marty, the agency, as well as the partner, we're all aligned on exactly what we will be tested. And we're not just going to be testing on that upper funnel, we're kind of relating it back to at home. We're always going to be looking at that bigger picture, but everything has to be proven by results.
Definitely. And I think, Marty, from your side, right, everything we've talked about a lot of today, and just even in the upcome of programmatic out of home over the last few years, everything's been about data and measurement, right? But I think looking at the medium, it is an ultimate awareness driver, right? And I think sometimes it's difficult for brands to take a big portion of their budget and dedicate it towards generating brand awareness and loyalty. Would love your thoughts on the value there and how important you think that is.
Yeah, I think one thing we see is, right, when we think about it as an awareness driving medium, we definitely then see the uplift in search, right? So there is some correlation through the media mix modeling that we have in place. But also long-term brand growth isn't going to come from short-term tactics. So we know to drive loyalty, to drive that long-term brand preference, we also have to market, promote, and continue to communicate in that way as well. So from a brand lift study, brand preference study perspective as well, we have some of those long-term metrics. And I think, particularly in airlines, right, we've been very focused on, okay, well, if the plane goes out with X number of seats open, we need to make sure we're trying to sell them. And so our structure has been focused around performance marketing. And I love seeing some of the other teams and clients that are here talk about growth marketing, because I think that's ultimately the shift, right? Performance marketing is just part of growth marketing, but that also encompasses short-term and then, more importantly, long-term growth, which, again, loyalty will come from inherently.
Definitely. Anything for you two to add there? Adrian, any thoughts on that? I'm going to come to you on creative.
I mean, as far as creative, out of home does require very specific, parameters in order to be very effective. It's got a shorter ultimate dwell time in some cases for some of the formats. We need to be very bold and very purposeful with the messaging that we put out. And then when it comes to some of the other formats that we encompass in a media plan, the contextual relevance can really catapult the performance into the stratosphere. We're talking about true brand activation on the spot in terms of searches, interaction with social media, etc., as well as, we're about to test this shortly, the QR code activation. Typically, it's not something that has been advisable, but to Marty's point, the advent of COVID has meant everybody's so familiar with the QR codes that it warrants inclusion now, because we see that the activation rate is actually high enough and sufficient to warrant its inclusion. I think that's amongst other things, such as DCO and the fact that programmatic out of home can now truly capture, and have that DCO functionality. Those are some of the things that excite me about where the future lies with out of home and creative, for sure.
Nice. Marty, do you have any thoughts on creative?
Plenty.
On creative?
plenty.
Oh, plenty. Okay.
Sorry, my accent. We got two on
We
the
were talking
panel.
about this earlier. I can understand.
Yeah, the one thing that we talk about all the time and try to bridge the gap between our media teams and our creative teams, like 70% of our effectiveness is based on the creative, right? And I think we owe it as media channels, publishers, media teams to give those insights back to our creative counterparts as well. Let them know what's performing, test, try new things, because their job's also getting harder, right? As these formats become more niche, the creative becomes more niche, we owe it to them to give them those insights in return. And so I think EssenceMediaCom, Kinetic, the team have done a really good job of connecting with our creative agency as well, of bringing those insights back to them and saying, hey, here's how you should think about this specific format, or this is a learning we took from the last campaign, let's roll it out before the next flight starts.
Definitely. And I think as more brands, right, who are very digital heavy are starting to explore out of home, I think there's a real opportunity to take advantage of the canvas, right? Working with a lot of these teams, you'll see people take IAB banners and just immediately push those and try to run those on out of home. And I think it's not, you could be a lot more thoughtful with that approach, right? And repurposing those. So it's just something I would challenge your creative agencies or anyone you're working with to really make the assets speak to the medium. So we're going to shift from creative. I think, Morgan, from your side, what are you excited about? What's next? I know we started working with American last year. As we look at the partnership evolve, what's exciting about what's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really just building off of Q4, how successful we were in Q4 when we really came out of the gate strong, coming back into the out-of-home space. We just launched our out-of-home campaign this week, actually, on Monday, so we're excited about that. And we're really going to be incorporating more out-of-home into our mix throughout the year. We have a variety of co-op campaigns that we have. We have a cruise campaign coming up that American has a partnership with, so we will be implementing out-of-home there as well. And one thing that we're really interested in testing and kind of tying back to the whole creative aspect is we are interested in kind of digging deeper in the dynamic creative space and seeing how we can kind of capitalize there, especially it is a newer space. So it's a good test to kind of look into and see how we can make that work.
Love it. And this question's for all of you, so we can keep it with Morgan. What's one piece of advice you would have when talking to other brand agency and platform teams on ways they can, be good partners?
I think for us, something that has really worked is communication. I feel like we are in constant communication, whether it's Marty and his team or Kinetic and even Vistar. We work across a variety of different partners, and communication has really let us all be on the same page. We're, very open about things, and we just kind of make sure that everyone's all on the same page right from the beginning. So I feel like communication is really the main thing for me.
I think from my perspective, it's around transparency. So our agencies and our partners are extension of our brand teams, and we can't be successful as a collective unless we're transparent. And sometimes that's around having difficult conversations, but also explaining the why, right? It's really frustrating to expect your agencies are going to read your mind if they don't have the context. And so we're really focused on, and I think done a great job of building those relationships and the trust to ensure that transparency is there. It only helps us all in the long term.
I think for us, it's approaching things with a growth mindset. Just redoing what we've done in years past and running it back isn't going to grow our clients' business and isn't ultimately going to propel the channel forward. So approaching things with a growth mindset and wanting to challenge what you've already done and the established ways of working, improve upon them, even if it means breaking it in the short term to make it better in the long term.
Well said. And on the platform side, I'll just add adaptability. We're not all Googles and Trade Desks. And I think as partners, we have to be nimble and kind of have our solution work for the team. And I think, working really closely with Essence and with Kinetic, and even at the client level with Marty, I feel like you guys have been really leaned in. I think our solution has evolved based on just working really closely with you guys. So thank you for that. So we're gonna end with one last question before we open it up for questions. But Marty, any hot travel tips for the group? Flights are expensive. What can we do?
You can work for an airline. You get free flights, and we need good people across. I would say, without it sounding like a sales pitch, there are a lot of ways that you can start building up to earn those travel experiences, right? It doesn't mean having to purchase a ticket all the time. So I would say, like, look at those opportunities, look at what you're doing across the board in daily life, and find a way to amplify that. And also use the self-service tools that are out there. So when things go wrong, and they do go wrong, like, you don't need to spend time in a line or waiting on the phone. You can self-service. So take hold of those, because you'll save yourself a lot of time and frustration, I think, in the long run.
Nice. Thanks, Marty. All right, we can open it up for no time. All right, sorry, no time for questions, guys. Marty will be here for the rest of the day, so just grab him, Morgan and Adrian as well. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.